issues out there. Now we're having. How's that better? All right, good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting tonight, December 7th, 2015. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor Ford.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock.
Here.
Councilman Amador.
Present.
Councilman Teeter.
Here.
Councilman Carson.
Present.
Councilman Benson.
Here.
Councilman McEldowney.
Here.
Councilwoman Elliott.
Present.
Councilman Douglas.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And tonight, during our moment of silence, I'd like you to keep in your hearts and prayers the families of Pastor Frank, longtime resident and pastor in this community, and Gwen Jeffries, longtime resident and my wife's grandmother. She moved here to Commerce City in 1950. So please stand and join me for a moment of silence. Yes, sir.
I think Pearl Harbor Day. We ought to recognize that this is the 74th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Great choice there,
Oklahoma
Mr.
to West Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Nevada.
So we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Test. Now I would like staff to pass around the microphone and allow the audience to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Michael Scanlon.
Ada.
Maria Armendariz.
Ariel Elliott.
Gianni Elliott.
Donovan Quintana.
Tom Green.
Lynn Baca.
Joan Kniss.
Chad Ray.
Misty Ray.
Brianna Ray. Todd Teeter. Aaron Teeter. Brooklyn Ray.
Patty Teeter. Kathy Teeter.
Ricky Teeter.
Samantha Ford.
Calvin Ford.
Calvin Ford.
Ainsley Glad.
Candy Steele.
I'm James Pinkney.
Doug Hyman with IT.
Misty Ty.
John Ty.
Danielle Yearsley.
Paul Hebank, Buffalo Run Golf Course.
Karen O'Donnell, Parks and Recreation.
Mike Brown, Parks and Recreation.
Roger Tinkenberg, City Manager's Office.
Troy Smith, Police Department.
Kathy Blakeman, Human Resources. Michelle Claymore, Economic Development.
Maria DeAndre, Public Works.
Scott Hergenrader, CH2M team.
Ana Galvan.
Paulo Diaz.
Deborah Bullock.
Reba Geroder.
Terry Smith.
Jacoby Douglas.
Britta Douglas.
Stephen Douglas.
Nicola Yagelski. Dexter.
Annika Douglas.
Christy Douglas.
Tanya Douglas.
Addison Douglas.
Vicki Douglas.
Carol Douglas, mother of Councilman Steve Douglas.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight. It looks like the Douglas family showed up in force. This is one of those meetings that's special for this council and this community. So I'm glad you're all here to witness and represent. We're going to start off with on our agenda, the citizen communication portion of our meeting. You have, please give your name and address for the record and keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. Looks like we have a pair of ladies that signed up. Deborah Bullock and Reba Drotar, if you'll please approach the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Deborah Bullock, 6130 Ivanhoe Street, Commerce City, Colorado. And on behalf of the Historical Society, we just want to congratulate all the winners, and we want to thank Jim Benson for the last 8 years. A lot of things that we've done with the Historical Society you supported, and we just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm Reba Droder, 7505 East 121st Place. And I'd also like to congratulate all the winners and to thank Mr. Benson for his service here in Commerce City. I did sit with you for quite a while, right next to you, and appreciate your work. And I'd also like to congratulate everybody from all the winners and the City Council for being so good to Adams 14, and to thank you for all of the support you've given all the children in the community, of which tonight was a great example.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This thing isn't plugged in tonight. Is this broke too? All right, so if the council wants to say something, you have to get my attention, because I don't have don't push your button. All right, you keep watch, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We have November 9th, 2015. I'm open for a motion to approve the minutes of November 9th. Mr. McEldowney.
So moved.
Mr. Bullock.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. And we'll take care of the November 2nd minutes. I'm asking for a motion to allow myself to abstain from voting on the minutes of November 2nd because of an excused absence. Is there a motion for that abstention? Mr. Bullock.
Move to abstain, so moved.
Mr. Douglas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to allow for my abstention. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now I need a motion for the November 2nd, 2015 minutes. Mr. Benson.
Move to approve the November 2nd, 2000, is it 2nd or the 9th?
Second.
It's a second.
Okay, November 2nd, 2015 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. All right, now we have October 5th, 2015 minutes. I'm open for a motion to approve those minutes. Councilwoman Carson.
So moved.
Mr. Amador.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2015. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and a single vote. Any member of the City Council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight there are 11 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone on this council wish to remove an item off of the consent agenda for further discussion? Mr. Douglas.
Yes. I'd like to remove Resolution 2015-110, resolution approving award for contract for the new rec center, preliminary and final design services. And Resolution 2015-114, resolution awarding contract for Buffalo Run clubhouse remodel.
All right, I'm just trying to get these down here. State the name of the first resolution again, the title. 110?
Yeah.
110 and 114. All right, those are pulled from the consent agenda. So now we have 9. Mr. Gaylor, will you, well, let me get a motion first. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Bullock?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, Mr. McEldowney?
Second.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. Mr. Gaylor, please read the 9 titles that are left in the consent agenda.
Yes, prior to doing that, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, call your attention to Resolution 2015-129, which is the last item on the consent agenda. There is a administrative correction in that resolution, and we can just make that as a clerical correction without removing it from the consent agenda. The correction is deletion of subparagraph 3B4, which the Adams County Coordinating Committee this morning deleted that particular subparagraph. So the correction will be made, but I'd like to proceed with reading the consent agenda with that correction.
Is the council okay with that change to that resolution? Any problems? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. Go ahead and read the titles of the...
All right, title of resolution of ordinance AN 232-15, an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of contiguous unincorporated territory described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at the southern right-of-way for East 96th Avenue between State Highway 2 and Buckley Road, a quarter section of land at the northeast corner of East 96th Avenue and Peoria Street, and a small portion of city-owned property at the southwest corner of East 96th Avenue and Buckley Road alignment, Commerce City, Colorado. Title of Ordinance Z 928-15, an ordinance rezoning from AG to Public Zone District, the property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at the northwest corner of East 96th Avenue and Peoria Street, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the City of Commerce City, Colorado to reflect said rezoning. Title of Ordinance Z 913-15, an ordinance rezoning from Adams County zoning of A3 to Commerce City zoning of public, the properties described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at the northeast corner of East 96th Avenue and Peoria Street, PIN 1721133000011, 1721133000003, and 1721133000004, and the southwest corner of East 96th Avenue and Buckley Road alignment, PIN number 1723201000001, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the City of Commerce City, Colorado to reflect said rezoning. Title of Resolution Number 2015-113, Resolution Approving Agreement for Appointment of Municipal Court Judge. Title of Resolution 2015-122, Resolution Approving Award of Contract for Construction Management and Inspection Services for Tower Road Widening Project. Title of Resolution 2015-125, Resolution canceling City Council meetings that fall on officially scheduled city holidays. Title of Resolution 2015-126, Resolution regarding posting locations for ordinances and public meetings. Title of Resolution 2015-127, Resolution approving agreement for appointment of substitute municipal court judge. Title of Resolution 2015-129, Resolution approving amended and restated intergovernmental agreement for Adams County Airport Coordinating Committee. And that's the consent agenda as amended. Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. I have a motion and a second. The titles have all been read on the consent agenda. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, consent agenda has been approved unanimously this evening, and we'll make our way back to Resolution 2015-110. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thank you. The reason why I set this to the side, just want to make sure on this contract before approval that we follow along the same guidance as far as what we're doing right now for widening of Tower Road to make sure, we're looking at the lights and everything for Tower Road, but as far as the rec center, making sure that the swimming pool and all meets the demands of our residents, and that we're not too far ahead of the schedule, that things are not picked out before. Because I've been getting a lot of feedback from people saying, hey, can we get 24-hour fitness or so, because I don't think this rec center is going to meet the demand. So I just want to make sure that we're clear going through that council is full aware of what's coming in and how the design is at each phase of this project, and to make sure our citizens are not lost in the shuffle.
Appreciate that. Would you like any information from the rec center staff that's here this evening on the contract?
I know there's a presentation here. It seems like a short one. That's not necessary, but if the council likes, we could do a presentation. Otherwise, just accept it as stated.
Then would you like to make the motion to approve Resolution 2015-110?
Yes, I'd like to make a resolution to approve Resolution 2015-110 as stated.
Thank you. Mr. Amador.
Yes, thank you. I'm reading through the legislation text, and I'm glad to see that the process went well through different criteria. I do see one of the notes that says after the final tabulation and weighing for the selection, but I think that we're missing the final tabulation part. I'd like to see the scores and how they shook out. I think that would be helpful for us to understand.
All right, how about I do this real quick? Because I have a motion on the floor. I'm looking for a second. Once I get that second, if the council chooses they want more additional information, I'll call the Parks and Rec staff to the podium, and they can give you what you need, and we'll have discussion at that time. But since I have a motion on the floor, it either needs to be withdrawn or seconded.
I'll second.
I have a second to the motion. Now I'd like to ask if there's a Park and Rec staff member here, or Mr. McBroom, can you handle the questions that the council is about to partake on you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask Mr. Hergenrader to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that we have all those details with us this evening. We did not include that level of detail in the packet, but it's no problem at all to send that information out to City Council.
Okay.
Very good, and just for future reference as well on any other projects that are coming down the pipeline.
Thank you. Now, any other discussion before I call for a vote? Remember, I don't have a thing up here to tell me you want to say something, so you have to raise your hand. All right. No further discussion. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Kaler, read the title, please.
Title of the resolution reads, Resolution approving award of contract for new recreation center preliminary and final design services.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now we'll move on to Resolution 2015-114. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thank you. The reason why I pulled this one off, just want to make sure that everything, well, what's not included is a report from our food and beverage manager. Since we did hire Rob, he's doing an excellent job, and this remodeling of the clubhouse is going to affect his ability to make sure everybody is not only fully staffed, but making sure when the food comes in as far as inventory, we have adequate room for that. And I see through this remodel, this does great space saver for inside of the clubhouse. But as far as adding any additional room in the back of the restaurant, very, very minimal. So I just want to keep that in mind if that's needed. And I would really appreciate a report this council report from Rob, because I understand we're doing very well in the restaurant, and through this impact of remodeling, how is that going to help him?
Mr. McBroom?
Perhaps I could follow up with Mr. Douglas after the meeting. We'd be happy to provide additional information from the golf course staff. Just to clarify, the food and beverage manager does report to the Director of Golf Operations, Paul Hebink. So the food and beverage manager's feedback has been included throughout the process. So I'll follow up with you on what specific information you're interested in, and we'd be happy to provide that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Mr. Douglas, I'm open for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution awarding the contract for Buffalo Run Golf Course remodeling.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on Resolution 2015-114. Mr. Gaylor.
Title of the resolution reads, Resolution Authorizing Award of Contract for Buffalo Run Clubhouse Remodel.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We'll move on to the resolution portion of our agenda. We have Resolution 2015-104. I'm going to ask Mr. Brown to come forward to make a presentation.
Go to view. And then down to full screen. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Again, I'm Mike Brown. I'm the Parks Planning and Operations Manager. And this evening, I'm pleased to present the contract award recommendation for the next two parks as part of the 2K overall project lineup of projects. Again, this would be the Villages of Buffalo Run East Park site as well as the Turnberry Park site, and those again are both neighborhood parks. The purpose this evening specifically is to provide you with an overview of that process that we went through to receive those bids. Also specifically to gain council direction on including a softball field, or actually the construction of a softball and baseball field at the Villages of Buffalo Run East Park site. I'll of course have additional information on that later in the presentation, but we do look forward to your feedback and direction on that. And then lastly, to demonstrate that the contracting process is consistent with the procurement policy that council did adopt in April of 2014. Related to design and bidding, specifically design, DHM Design was the landscape architect that was put under contract in November of 2014 to do the design on these two parks. We did have extensive public outreach. Most of our input was received through online participation, but we did have some public engagement meetings. April 8th was the Turnberry meeting, and April 9th was the Villages of Buffalo Run East meeting. And those conceptual designs or master plans that were arrived at through that public input process were presented to council in June of 2015. And then lastly, in just toward the end of October, we were able to finalize 100% construction documents. So again, the overall design for Turnberry, again, typical of a neighborhood park. Council has seen this before. Typical neighborhood park elements, a perimeter trail, open play field areas that can be programmed for practices for a variety of multi-purpose sports, picnicking facilities, playground, things of that nature. So be the same for Villages of Buffalo Run East, exactly the same elements, only just laid out a little bit differently. You will see there, though, that there's a conceptual ball field in the lower right-hand corner that, again, we'll be seeking some specific direction from council on momentarily. Related to bidding, the bid documents were issued on October 20th, 2015. We advertised those on the city's website as well as the Rocky Mountain e-purchasing system. The construction cost range at that time was between $1.43 million and $1.63 million, as estimated by the designers. We did have specific pre-qualifications for any contractors that were to bid, specific construction experience, the staff and the firm both, as well as the ability to meet the city's bonding and insurance requirements, and then having similar project experience and references to verify that. We had the public bid opening on November 13th of this year, and we received 6 bids. During the period between November 13th and November 18th, we evaluated those bids, and based on that, your council communication, the resolution, and the reward recommendation has come forward this evening, and that's all in your packet for reference. Bid results, you can see Goodland Construction was the low bidder in both of the scenarios. First, the Turnberry one, including the alternates, as well as the Villages Buffalo Run East Park site, including alternates. And then lastly, related to this ball field at the Villages Buffalo Run East Park site, you're all familiar that the Prairie Ways Action Plan, the master plan for the city's parks, trails, and open space system in the Northern Range, specifically designs neighborhood parks in conjunction with elementary schools. And the current condition at Timmick Elementary School, Second Creek Elementary School, and Turnberry Elementary School is that the schools typically build a baseball, softball field that is used by the school. The city then also has a joint use agreement by which the city has permission to use that field after school hours, and most of the kids that participate in our recreation programs who would go to that school would then practice at that particular field. It's a great arrangement. Again, the school and the park being in the center of neighborhoods, it's the focal point, and it really provides us the ability to share resources and not duplicate one another. The situation at the Villages Buffalo Run East site, that site was slightly smaller in general, the overall site, that would be enough for the park and the school. And so we worked with the district early on to be able to incorporate the field, the ball field, softball field that the school would use into the park site. And then, of course, the recreation department, the city would have use of that field after hours. At this point, there is no guarantee. In fact, there is potential that there will not be a school built at this particular site. So what staff is looking for is direction from City Council as to whether Council would want recreation staff to move forward in building that field for use by the public and for our programs. So again, currently it's included as a bid alternate in our bid. Should Council direct us other than to build the field, we would just do a deductive change order to that contract. Again, the intent was for a shared use field with 27J, the elementary school, but again, it's not certain that school will be built. During the community events, it was shown as future at those meetings because, again, we weren't sure exactly when the school would be built at that time. And lastly, you'll note that the cost to build the field now, if we do it now, is $91,000. And obviously, the rate at which things have been increasing in the current market, it will be more in the future. So some pros related to moving forward and building that at this time. It would follow the intent of the community development plan, again, to have those ball fields available within neighborhood parks for those kids in that neighborhood for practicing specific sports that are run through the recreation program, as well as just a drop-in use for the neighborhood. It does provide additional practice space, which the recreation staff has indicated we have a severe lack of space for that currently in the northern part of the city. And it can be built within the three neighborhood park budget. The budget that was allotted for those three parks collectively would still allow for us to build that within that budget, overall budget of the three combined. And again, it would be less expensive to build now than in the future. Cons would be, again, there's uncertainty about the school site. We're not sure if it will be built, when, or if exactly it will be built. The public didn't get to select this specific feature of the park, though it is typical with all of our neighborhood parks to have one at least adjacent if it's on the school site or incorporated into the overall site. And then it may set a precedent for future neighborhood parks without confirmed school sites, which at this point we don't have any, but certainly there's always a possibility that that could occur. Related to budgets, the Turnberry budget, you'll see there that we have the baseline project budgets on the left and the current project budget on the right. The design and project management portions remained equal. The design contingency was drawn down as it was not used. You'll see the construction came in higher than what the baseline project budget was. The construction contingency has remained or is kept equal. The other costs, permit fees, et cetera, remained equal as well. And then the project level contingency remained equal. We did receive an Adams County open space grant for both of these parks, $150,000 for each, so that would reduce the offset or the increase in the construction by $150,000, so you see that bringing that number down. And then we had remaining budget from the Frontera project, and we would bring over $345,000 of that, in addition to the $150,000 grant to fund the shortage in construction to move forward with the project as designed. The Village of Buffalo Run East budget, again, baseline project budget on the left and the current project budget on the right. Again, design and project management remaining the same. design contingency being drawn down. Construction, again, more than we had anticipated. The construction contingency would remain the same, as would the permit fees and other costs, as well as the project level contingency. But again, we received a $150,000 grant from Adams County Open Space for this park as well. And then we would draw down $205,000 remaining in the Frontera budget, again, to offset those higher than anticipated construction costs. And for a final budget there of $2,553,148. When you look at all three of the parks combined, you'll see there on the left, we have the baseline budgets and then added the grants to them. So you'll see that we were to the good on Frontera, and then short on Turnberry and Villages in Buffalo Run East. But again, by using those grants and the overages or not overages, but excess funds that were left in the Frontera Park budget to offset the increases in the other two parks, we're able to come in right in on that budget. And again, that would allow for the construction of that ball field at Villages Buffalo Run East. So the overall proposed schedule, again, we would, with council's approval this evening to move forward, we would issue notice of award tomorrow to the contractor, and then begin getting them under contract and have them on site roughly around the middle of January. There's typically a 180-day contract timeline with these parks. Of course, that's obviously weather dependent. We all learned our lesson with that this year. And then we would anticipate it opening toward the end of July, the first part of August. And so the next steps, again, obtain council's approval for authorization to award the contract this evening. Again, we would issue the notice to proceed to Goodland Construction tomorrow. Groundbreaking would be planned for January, of course, of 2016, and then, as I just mentioned a moment ago, opening the park in Q3 of 2016. So with that, I certainly would like to answer any questions that you may have, and particularly receive any feedback or direction on building that ball field at the Villages Buffalo Run East Park site.
Thanks, Mike. All right, council. We'll start down here. Steve, you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Mike, for the update on this. And to the added ball field, the time we had citizens communication, we had different outreaches to the community and different selections for each park. At that time, this wasn't brought up, and we were limited to on what each site could hold based on the budget. So, to me, it's nice to have this ball field, but at this time, since it was not presented to the public for a choice, I feel that right now it's not necessary, and we're not sure about the future of that school site being built. I would love to see the school be built and have 27J be part of that when it comes to adding the ball field. I'd rather see that $96,000 used for the trail down to King Soopers right now, which we don't have, and have that for later to be used on that, since it's part of Parks and Recs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Elliott, you have anything? No? Mr. McEldowney.
I appreciate Mr. Douglas's comments. The trail down Chambers Road is funded as part of the budget for next year, so that's accounted for. I think the key point here, as we heard from Mr. Brown, is that the budget is met. I mean, the project, it can include the ball field within the budget as projected, or as planned rather. Obviously, there's a question mark about whether or not or when a school may or may not take root on that site. I think regardless of whether or not a school is planned there in the short term or the long term, the fact remains that we have a significant deficiency in terms of facilities for our youth in the Northern Range. And whether or not a school is going to be sited here, if we can round out that project within the footprint and within budget to include that ball field, I think that's a great thing for us. It's going to be quite some time before we can add ball fields within the Second Creek corridor, which we all ultimately hope to see additional team fields take root in proximity to the new rec center and otherwise. So I think the other point is construction costs are not going down. They have not gone backwards in a long, long time. So for us to be able to leverage the current dollar estimate to build that site, we have the dollars in budget. Obviously, I understand that this was not a specific ask of the community, but on the other hand, the design was presented with this as a future component. So unless we got condescending opinions on the future inclusion of that from the citizens, then I don't see where we're going against anything that we've said that we would ultimately do. This would allow us to deliver what we've suggested would be delivered as part of this park sooner than we were able to commit to during those public outreach conversations. So with that said, I would recommend supporting the proposed contract and bid amounts inclusive of the ball field.
Mr. Andrew Amador.
Well, thank you. First comment, can we put slide number 5 up so that everybody in the audience and also in the who's watching on the camera can see exactly what we're talking about here? There we go. That's the ball field that we're looking at in the middle. One thing that you said, Mr. Brown, was that if we were to award this, the first thing that we would do is a deductive change order. So is the recommendation to award this project right now with the ball field?
The total dollar amounts reflected in your council communications would include that. If council were to direct us to not move forward with building the ball field, we would actually, it wouldn't actually be a deductive change order, I apologize, because we actually haven't executed a contract with them. The contract amount we would execute with them tomorrow, if we did not move forward with the ball field, would be less than $91,000 that would be allotted for the ball field.
Yes, thank you for the clarification, because it almost implied that we've already awarded the contract and then we were going to take something out. So I just wanted to be sure that
out, yes.
we didn't do that.
No.
Let's see, my second comment, will the ball field have lights just for the community to see?
It will not. Ball fields, this would be a practice field. There would not be lights associated with the ball field in a neighborhood park setting.
So no lights, thank you. My other comment, I'm looking at this, and I think you touched on it. It is a practice field as opposed to, we'll say, the shared agreement with Parks and Recreation and the school, a beer league kind of a venue where maybe the beer league would be out there, maybe creating havoc or at least having a very good time in the park. Can you talk a little bit about the agreement and what you anticipate the field and when it would be used?
So the agreement with the school district is, of course, for the recreation department and its programming to use those fields after school hours. My understanding from the recreation staff is that currently we have about 150 kids in the northern part of the city participating in Commerce City Parks and Recreation programs. In addition to that, we have about 200 kids that are participating in the Brighton Youth Baseball program. Brighton is also requesting that we assist them with fields for practice facilities. It's also my understanding during the busy time of the season, just with those kids in our programs, without adult programs, those fields are booked 5 nights a week, starting in May all the way through most of the summer. So while there may be a group of adults who would use that field for practice and perhaps drink beer while doing that, I suppose that's possible, but generally it would be scheduled and booked for practices for teams and kids within Parks and Recreation programs, as well as potentially Brighton baseball, youth baseball.
That definitely helps influence my decision for the additional alternate. I'm looking at the slope of the site, and it looks like the baseball field is off to the side, and so one of the things that we'd like to look at, if you look at the topography there, it slopes from right to left as opposed to as you go away from home plate. So not a big deal on the practice field, but just something to think about in the drainage, and I'm sure that's already been vetted.
Yeah, certainly it's not ideal. Unfortunately, we need the drainage for the site is in the northeast corner, so everything unfortunately sort of needs to flow that direction.
Very good. And then for clarity, I know permitting is one thing, but also I want to talk about maintenance. The maintenance of this new facility is accounted for in the 2K project, correct?
It is accounted for in the operating budget, but through 2K funds, which are specifically set aside for the operations and maintenance of these facilities, yes.
Very good, thank you. You have my support.
Mr. Teeter.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Mike, for your presentation tonight. As most of you know, I've been working with Parks and Recreation in Brighton on his youth baseball, softball in the last month and a half here. We did have some meetings here recently also with Brighton. And if we can have fields tomorrow, I would have fields tomorrow. We need fields up on that north end. These kids are eager to play up there and get involved up there. And the sooner we can get fields on the north end, the better it's going to be for the youth of Commerce City. And I'll be voting for this.
Councilwoman Carson.
Just a question real quick, Mike. At Timming, there is a baseball field there? I've been racking my brain trying to see it.
There is. It would be in the southwest corner of that overall site. It's sort of hidden by the school a little bit if you're looking from east to west. But
Okay.
there is
Does it have
ball
a
field there.
backstop, and would this have a backstop?
Yes, it would. It would have a backstop, dugouts, skinned infield. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm with Mr. Teeter. We hear a lot up north that we lack this type of facility for kids. So I in full support to, when we put this in, that we build another field.
If I can put it in perspective, we have approximately 350 kids participating in youth baseball and softball programs in the core historic part of the city, and we have 11 practice fields here for them. That would be with Fairfax Park and the School District 14 fields where they have practice. We have, with the Brighton Youth Baseball in the north, 200 kids as well as 150 in our recreation programs. We have the same number of kids in the north that currently have 3 practice fields.
3?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, well, then we definitely, as Mr. Teeter said, build it as fast as you can, I guess. Thank you.
Mr. Benson. You have any comments on this subject?
I would agree that the baseball field ought to be built.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock.
I echo the comments of all the council people that spoke before. Only thing I wish that they could do would be lighted. But seeing I know that would exceed the budget, I am totally for this field being built up there.
All right, thank you, council members. I would like to ask, before I get too carried away with my comments, Ms. DeAndrea to talk about, unless you can handle it, Mike, the trail and the planning for that trail with the passing to get these kids to King Soopers.
If I could, just to confirm Mr. McEldowney's statement, funding for the trail from, say, Heartland Drive, south along Chambers Road to 104th Avenue is already budgeted.
I just wanted you to reiterate it, Brian. That's what I wanted to hear. Because I think it's important that the residents, not only in this room, but the residents at home, realize that we are taking care of that issue. We have the opportunity to save some money and provide an additional piece to our Parks and Rec component for the practice field to be up there. Lighting, I think, would be a distraction within a neighborhood. So I think it's okay not being lighted, but to have that additional field, I think, is a benefit to our residents. But I think they also need to be reassured that that trail is also budgeted and will be going in. Okay? So I'll be supportive. I'm open for a motion. Mr. McEldowney.
Would move to approve Resolution 2015-104.
Okay. Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Gaylor, will you please read that title?
Title of Resolution 2015-104, Resolution authorizing award of contract for Turnberry Park and Villages at Buffalo Run East Park construction.
All right, before I call for a vote, I want to ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to approach the council concerning this agenda item. Saying no one? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We'll move on to ordinances on first reading. We have ordinance 2074. And ask council if they have any questions regarding this resolution. Seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council concerning ordinance 2074? Seeing none, I'm open for a motion. Mr. McEldowney.
I think Mr. Bullock wanted to make the motion on this.
Mr. Bullock, go ahead.
Move to approve ordinance or introduce ordinance 2074. Council is seated.
Thank you. Mr. Benson?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Geller, you want to read the title, please?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2016 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Great Outdoors Colorado Inspire Initiative grant funds in the amount of $100,000 for the support of the Northeast Metro Coalition and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second, and the title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, the ordinance ordinance 2074 has been introduced unanimously by this council this evening. And we'll move on to ordinance 2075. Does council have any questions regarding this resolution? Or, I'm sorry, this ordinance. That's a typo. All right, no one? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council regarding this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Amador.
Move to approve ordinance 2075 on first reading.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read that title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2016 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Adams County Open Space Grant Funds in the amount of $300,000 for the support of Commerce City neighborhood parks and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. Ask for a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance 2075 has been introduced unanimously by this council this evening. Now we'll move on to ordinance 2076. Anyone on council have any questions regarding this resolution or this ordinance or ordinance? I don't know why that's that way in this. Anyone? Do you have any? No? No? Anyone in the audience have any questions or would like to address the council concerning ordinance 2076? Seeing none, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Benson.
Move for the introduction of ordinance 2076 on first reading.
Thank you. Councilwoman Carson. Second. Have a motion and a second. Mr. Attorney, will you please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2016 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Adams County Open Space Grant Funds in the amount of $450,000 for the support of Sand Creek Open Space Remediation Phase 1 and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. The title's been read. I'll take a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance 2076 is introduced unanimously by the council this evening. We'll move on to the next item in our agenda, which is presentations. I'd like to invite Councilman Benson to join me down in front of the dais.
That's you, Jim. Stand tall.
Good to go?
I believe so.
Have you been practicing this song?
Hotel California.
That's the one?
You can check out any time, but you can never leave.
Well, it's kind of like that, but we're going to let you leave. So I want to recognize Mr. Benson. 8 years of service to this community. And this is one of those guys that I could tell you has gotten under our skin on regular occasions. But I don't think there's a more honorable person that I could have worked with. Mr. Benson truly takes his community very seriously, and he wants the best for the residents of Commerce City, and that's true in how he's voted all the years that he's served on this council. I know that over the years, there's been issues that we haven't seen eye to eye on, but we still remain good friends, and that's important. We all have the city's best interest at heart, and Mr. Benson's a true person of that category that has always looked after his residents and has done his job with dignity. And I want to thank Mr. Benson for his years of service and congratulate him on completing 2 terms as city council member for Commerce City. Mr. Benson? The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's been 8.5 years.
Here, use this one. That one's not on.
It's not?
Is it on? All right. Well, you're just not coming through good.
It's been 8.5 years, not just.
All right, 8.5.
After we changed the election date. But, anyway, I've been very proud to be a member of this organization, and this council appointed me to the board of E470 and the board of the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and I've served on all 3 of these entities for the past 8.5 years. And you know, the intellect, collegiality, and professionalism of all 3 of those groups is there's no comparison to any of the groups I've ever belonged to. And I want to say I really enjoyed my association with the staff of this city, the city manager, all of you, Mr. Gaylor, Mr. Hayes, the chief, Roger. It's been a good 8.5 years. So thank you all for your hard work, and let's keep up the good work of trying to raise money for the city and building things. I mean, 2K was a great thing, and we'll see the results of it in 2 or 3 years, I hope. So thank you all very much.
I can assure you Mr. Benson's not leaving. He will still be here to keep us on track. We won't let him toll Highway 2, though. I know that's not going to happen, Jim. But I will tell you, you will all see the fruits of Mr. Benson's labor over the next several years in Commerce City for all of the good things that he has supported with new rec centers, widening of Highway 2, the fight that he gave in Washington, D.C., with the Federal Railroad Administration. He did that to try to help with our railroad issues in this community. He has been wonderful when it comes to the FAA and getting on our on-ramp onto Pena Boulevard. He's a very smart man. He has kept us on track. I hate to see him go, but I can tell you and reassure you he will be part of this community, and if he sees something that's not going quite right, he's going to make sure he lets us know. So, Mr. Benson, it's not goodbye, it's just thank you.
I have one comment to make about that FAA meeting.
I figured you would.
When the person representing the FAA told us that people coming out of the parking lots on Tower Road trying to get onto Pena were not airport related, I almost bit my tongue off at that point in time. But
we're glad you did, because we
restraint for me.
and that's good, because we got the deal done without you having to beat somebody up.
I think it's
and we know we could have called on you.
It's going to be great.
But Mr. Benson, thank you for all your years of service. I'd like to.
I started to ask the question. Well, if when you leave the airport, you're no longer airport related, why did you build the westbound lane on Pena? That was the question I wanted to ask, but I didn't.
All right, I'm going to bring this back around. Okay. Mr. Benson, I was not trying to get you off on some subject about the airport. I was just trying to say how great a job you did, and we are very appreciative. Now I'd like to ask Mr. McBroom to come up We have some parting gifts here for Mr. Benson.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present to Mr. Benson 3 small tokens of appreciation for his 8 years of service, serving the residents of Commerce City. There's no way to adequately thank Mr. Benson for his years of service, but we do have 3 small items that we hope will help him remember his time on City Council. First, I'd like to present Mr. Benson with his framed photograph that was out in the lobby. And I will tell you, there's not one bit of Photoshop in this photo. Mr. Benson really looks this good.
Thank you.
Next, we have a collection of photos, again, to help Mr. Benson remember his years of service on the City Council. So I hope this will find a prominent place in your home.
Thank you, sir.
And last but certainly not least, City Council members have assigned parking out in front of City Hall. And so it seems appropriate that Mr. Benson leave tonight with the sign that marked his parking space for the last 8 years. You cannot put it back up here at City Hall, but you can take it with you.
I'll put this in my garage.
I was thinking we could have a sign put in up in Reunion for you to put that out on the curb in front of your house.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. McBroom, do you want to announce the special hors d'oeuvres that we got for Mr. Benson tonight?
In Mr. Benson's honor, after tonight's meeting, we have some mini corn dogs for you.
Corn dogs.
I did not know they made mini corn dogs, but
Do they know why I started eating corn dogs?
No, well,
I don't think everybody knows that story.
Mr. Benson, please tell the audience why we got you corn dogs.
Because sometimes the council would order food from someplace other than Commerce City. And I said, I'm not eating this food. I'll go down to King Soopers and buy myself some corn dogs, and which I like anyway, but I just try to buy the food in the city. I mean,
And we appreciate that. All your tax dollars, we
we
appreciate
don't
that.
have a famous Dave's in Commerce City, but
Even though we don't tax food in Commerce City,
right.
we still
Well, you
appreciate you shopping there. Yeah, well, sure, but you're buying frozen corn dogs.
Right, frozen corn dogs are not taxable in Commerce City.
Not only that, it has to do with the LSU football stuff, right? That's what started the whole corn dog thing?
People from LSU smell like corn dogs, but don't let them know. Don't let them know. It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Mr. Benson's from Texas A&M, and they have a rivalry with LSU. And so anytime Mr. Benson gets a chance to eat corn dogs, he does that just to infuriate the LSU fans, right?
Right.
All right, so don't make it about us. You like corn dogs.
All right.
See, we're having them tonight.
I do.
Mr. Benson, thank you for everything. You've been a great partner.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
And that will conclude the City Council meeting for this evening. We're going to start into our organizational meeting. I would like to ask Michelle Halstead to come up and get that started, and I would like the council to join me down in the seats in the audience, please.
So good evening. My name is Michelle Halstead, work with the City Manager's Office, and thank you all for coming this evening. At this time, I'd like Pastor Young to come to the microphone and provide a brief invocation.
Good evening. You understand that brief is open to interpretation. She didn't tell me what you meant by brief, but nevertheless, let us pray. Almighty God, Heavenly Father, we thank you for establishing the governing authorities, among which is our city council, and for using your governing authorities to punish those who do evil, praise those who do good, maintain law and order, to do justice, show mercy, and preserve peace in our community, and to provide for the governing services needed for thousands. We thank you for those who willingly serve upon our council, and for Jim Benson's 8.5 years of faithful service to our community on this council. Bless our city with honest